So this is one of those 80s movies that's got that thing that I only remember 80s movies having. Both Saturday morning cartoony feel and nudity.
Yeah.
It's just your stereotypical low budget B-80s movie. And man, boy, horrible dialogue, even worse, quote, special effects. I guess we can put them in that category.
Well, they are special, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But then I watched a new documentary on HBO Max, Class Action Park. Have y'all heard of Action Park?
No.
Well, if you can get your hands on this documentary, you're going to want to watch it. I remember this thing. Action Park was a water/attraction park that was built in New Jersey back in the late 80s and ran through the mid-90s, I believe. Maybe off and on because they had some legal troubles. Anyway, this place was notorious for kids getting injured, like all the time, every day. The rides were health hazards, literally health hazards. And I remember Ricky Rackman doing an MTV Headbangers Ball episode from it as a kid. And all I could think is, why in the hell are they doing a Headbangers Ball from a water park? Of course, Alice in Chains is there. Well, this place was opened by a guy who was a con man who got kicked off of Wall Street. So he opened up this water park, just designed rides himself with his friends, with, suggestions from teenagers. And the first ride they start talking about on this documentary is this water slide that goes into a full loop, and then spits you out. So they build it and start testing it out. The owner just starts giving kids $100 bills to get on this slide. Injuries start occurring, so they start adjusting the design of the slide. Then they figure they've got the slide just safe enough to work. So kids are coming out without broken bones. That's what that means. They're coming out without concussions or broken bones. Okay, so now it's safe enough, is what the owner says. However, they're still coming out with abrasions and lacerations on their body, and they can't figure out why. So they go in to inspect the slide. What they find out is through the trial and error of figuring out this design, several people had their teeth knocked out, and now people are getting cut by teeth that have been lodged into the walls of the slide.
Holy shit.
This fucking thing, you've got to see this documentary.
Dude, this sounds like an R.L. Stine book come to life.
It's amazing. They start talking about the designs of these things, these rides, quote, rides. And you're like, oh my God, they thought this was a good idea. And they start talking about the aid station. The aid station, they're like, well, it was a shack, and they would mix iodine and alcohol in a spray bottle and spray kids road burns and scrapes and cuts with it.
Oh, just dip them in mercuridine at that point.
I mean, this is amazing that this place. The question is, how did this place get open? How did it stay open? How was it insured? Right. Nobody would insure him, so he created his own fraudulent insurance company based out of the Cayman Islands. This is an amazing story.
Oh my God.
Seriously, that sounds like an R.L. Stine book come to life. Like
it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
The water slide that will eat you. That's insane.
Oh, and that's just one. That's the first ride they talk about in this documentary. I'm not going to tell you about it anymore because I don't want to spoil it. But you're watching the show like, Jesus Christ. I mean, they're talking about the amount of injuries that happen on this park on any given day. You're stunned. You're like, this is absolutely insane. There was a section of the wave pool they called the death section. The death section.
Of the wave pool?
Of the wave pool.
Oh.
Well,
Dude,
You know what won't leave you with abrasions, cut you, drown you, beat you with a death pool, or stab you with other people's teeth?
Southern Fried Geekery?
Listening to a podcast. Listen to episode 140 of the Southern Fried Geekery podcast, where we are back for another week of fun, and at least right now for these times, recentering ourselves and refreshment, because it seems like the week is just hell and it keeps getting worse. And hanging out with you guys and talking comics every week at least puts me back into the happy place.
It was the worst week of the worst month of the worst year.
It felt like that, but I'm scared to say it because I don't want to challenge 2020. I just want to let 2020 know that I respect it, and I'm going to stand over here.
Yeah, I will add the condition to that of so far.
Right. I don't need it to pick up steam. I don't need to feel like I'm questioning its ability to ruin everything. But I am Caleb Alexander McKenzie up on this show.
Matt Trogdon.
And I'm Craig Lance.
And yeah, no, this week was dumb in a multitude of ways, but that's okay because it is behind us and we are looking forward. But we can't do that without acknowledging at least the part of it that affected the lives of comic fans and fans of pop culture that's inspired by comics. And this past week, I think the news kind of rocked us all when Chadwick Boseman passed away. Of course, Chadwick was he was famous for playing a lot of characters. One of Craig's favorite was being Jackie Robinson, James Brown, and of course Thurgood Marshall from the legal aspect of things. And of course, last but certainly not least, and I think what he's most well known for is donning the crown of Wakanda, being T'Challa on Marvel's Black Panther. He was 43, died of colon cancer that he'd been battling for about 4 years. No one knew it. At least no one outside of his family knew, and his close circle knew, which kudos to them for all keeping that quiet and letting that man do what he needed to do for those last years of his life. But yeah, no, that was hard. That one hit.
It hit really hard. I mean, I sat and stared at my phone for just probably 2 hours, just, looking up stuff and, responding to people about it. But, it was surreal. And like you said, seemingly out of nowhere, since his family presumably were the only ones that knew. Right. It makes you wonder about things like the sequel to Black Panther, if that's why it's been, kind of so far out type thing and things like that. But certainly the art is second to the man that played those parts. Yeah.
I remember I watched the Spike Lee film, The Five Bloods, a few weeks ago, and he played in that as well. He had a part in that. He played one of the characters that died in Vietnam in that film. And I remember watching it and thinking, wow, like in this, he looks really small. Like in this role, I don't know if he lost weight for the role or what's going on, but he still looked like Chadwick, but he had lost a lot of weight. And I remember thinking that as the movie went by, and now that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Considering what he was going to, but the man was 43 years old, and talk about accomplishments by 43. Number one, like just to think about what all he did and the amount of people that he reached out and touched in those 43 years is incredible.
I mean, yeah, there's no doubt that the man, the artist, the person that he was, left in not coincidentally, but to the parts that he chose to play,
right,
and the roles he took on were indicative of the nature of the man he was himself.
Mm-hmm.
At least from all accounts that we have.
There's a speech floating around, a video floating around of a speech that he gave at Howard University. I shared it on my page, on my personal Facebook page.
I saw that.
If anybody gets a chance, and if you want to know what kind of person, like he was, like what his motivations were, like go watch that speech, because I think it lays it out. It lays it all really well. And I put it the best way I could, which oftentimes I fumble with words and stuff, but you know, a lot of people in the comics culture, like those of us who love this, we recognize them from being Black Panther, right? Like the character of Black Panther. And I think it's important to realize that we're not mourning a character. I think it's important to realize everybody who is mourning, they're mourning a man because of his character, and what he embodied. And there's a lot of lessons, like, try to pull something positive from something negative. There's a lot of lessons and a lot of personal things that you can learn from his life and apply to your own, regardless of race, but especially from a white dude who's standing back looking at all the chaos of the world right now and that the culture is going through. There's a lot of respect that I can learn by listening to the teachings of not only him, but I mean just Black folks in general. But like, it puts a lot of that in perspective for me. And yeah, like it's weird for me, and I realize you guys probably have already experienced this, but I'm 32, and it's weird for me reaching the age that people close to my age are starting to die of natural causes. And because that's not something I'm used to. I mean, in my 20s, when people my age died, they died from like really horrendous acts, right? But
yeah,
terrible things. But it wasn't nature doing it. And now more and more, I'm looking around. I'm like, oh wow, like that person was my age, or was just a few years older than me, or was actually a couple years younger than me, and like nature took them out. Cancer, heart attacks, just COVID, like things that shouldn't. Yeah, I don't know. So it's like making me, I guess, come to the reality with my own age and like with my own humanity and vulnerability in that sense. And it's put me in a weird headspace.
It will do that. For me, my dad died at a young age. So for me, the hardest was when I actually went past or became the age that he was when he died.
Yeah.
That was kind of surreal, but yeah, it definitely changes your perspective in life when you start realizing that you are no longer immortal.
For sure.
When you're in your 20s and your teens, you certainly feel like you are. And then, like you said, you start seeing people in your age group that are passing for natural causes. And it's like, well, guess what? We are not immortal. Things can get to us.
Just hurt your soul, man. Hurt your soul. So, Wakanda forever, right? Like that's just one of those things that, just you just got to throw up the arms across the chest and do it, because that meant so much to so many people. And, I think, like I said, just focus on the good things and I know it's cliche to say, but when you have somebody who leaves behind a legacy like Chadwick Boseman did, it's not hard. It's not hard to focus on those good things. So, if you have a favorite epitaph about that person or about a character that he played, share it with your friends. Put it out there in the world, because especially right now, we need to try to turn grief into something that isn't just a massive collection of depression. So, I think it's
and there were some really like surreal things that happened with his death, which I posted this on my personal page.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that he played Jackie Robinson, and because of 2020, they postponed Jackie Robinson Day to the day he was actually signed, I believe it is. So they postponed it till August, and it was on the same day that Chadwick passed away.
Yeah.
Not to mention, it was the same day that it was Jack Kirby's birthday.
Yep. The king.
Which is kind of surreal as well. So kind of, some irony in the day that he died, I guess, but very, it was heartbreaking. And I think, like you've said everything that needs to be said.
It's surreal.
Yeah.
We gotta bring up the mood. So,
let's bring up the mood with a.
Yeah, and I hate starting off with that, but I think it's always important to acknowledge when those things happen. I mean, not only for us, but
For
I mean,
sure.
it's in the major forefront of pop culture right now, so you can't not talk about it. One thing that I didn't like, if I can just say this, and I hope it doesn't step on too many people's toes, but one thing I've been kind of pissed off about is I've seen people already going, oh, well, are they gonna who are they gonna recast with? And like, I realize if you're a fan of the movie and not necessarily attached to the person, that might be a logical place to ask, but give it a little bit before you start wondering like how this is going to affect you personally. I don't even know if it's considered personally, but like before you start worrying about your favorite
franchise,
pastime activity and how it's going to affect that, like give it a little bit before you start doing stuff like that. Like those answers will come. You don't need to do it before
today
they've even had a chance to memorialize the man.
Yeah.
And that's kind of aggravated me over the past few days.
I wouldn't say aggravated me, but it certainly was, I mean, we probably have all had thoughts about it, but sometimes, just let those thoughts be your own.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, now that we've said that, let's talk about some comics. But before we talk about comics, I would like to invite everyone to swing by our Facebook page. If you are on Facebook, or if you're not on Facebook, maybe you've got Instagram and Twitter. We have Instagram and Twitter both. We're at SFG Podcast on that. If you've got any comments, concerns, collection, just issues that you want to talk about, and you're not comfortable voicing those things on a public forum, or maybe you're a creator and you've got an indie project coming out and you happen to stumble across our show and you're wondering, well, how can I connect with these guys? Shoot us an email. We're southernfriedgeekery@gmail.com. And that's really kind of the best way to get a hold of us. Any one of those routes, we're all pretty consistent and pretty constant when it comes to our social. Well, most of the time. I'm slow with returning emails sometimes, but we put in a good effort. So come check us out there. And you know what? Let us know what you're reading. Let us know what brings you joy, what you're liking. A lot of times folks go on social media and all they want to talk about is something they didn't like, or something that they thought was bad, or their opinion about something that they wanted to grade it. And you know what? There's maybe a place for that, but it's not our place. Life's a little too short to focus on those things that are negative. There's too much to talk about that was awesome. And why would you want to fill your time with just degrading something when you could, use that time for something better, like talking about stuff that you really, really enjoyed, kind of like we do on this podcast, or at least we attempt to.
I know the tens of people that anxiously await every week to see what I read. This week I did not make that post because work is stupid and I only read one book this week, and it happens to be our roundtable book. So.
Well, I guess on that note, Mr. Segway Champion, we should talk about our roundtable book.
Yeah.
What was our roundtable book this week? I too have had a long week and was overcome with things that prevented me from really doing the legwork that I normally do on the front end of the show. So because he's a gracious man, some might say a hero, Mr. Matt Trogdon stepped up and said, you know what? No, it's okay. I've got this. I'll do it. And he did, because he's awesome. So why don't you take this one, Matt, and walk us through.
Before you say he's awesome, should we wait and see how well he does? No, I'm playing.
Well, speaking of heroics and segues, is part of the segue we're just stepping over the short stack? Is that today's show?
We don't do short stacks right now.
Last I heard, we do short stacks when we goddamn feel like it.
Okay, if you got some short stacks,
I've got some fucking books I want to talk about.
Okay,
hey, remember
talk about your damn books, Matt.
Remember, like 3 weeks ago when I said, "Hey, we should bring back the short stack section," and Matt Trogdon stepped forward and said, "No, that's stupid. That's a terrible idea."
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
Play that. You play that audio back, and I'll say that happened.
Oh my gosh. Matt, talk about your books.
So I just want to throw out 2 books that I think deserve a little bit of extra praise from Image Comics. Dead Body Road, Bad Blood #3. I read this week. Of course, that's Justin Jordan, Benjamin Tiesma, and Matt Lopez's book. This issue took the narrative in a little bit deeper direction. It gave the antagonists motivation, more relatability and gravity without spoiling it. So I was like, oh wow, okay, this just took a little bit deeper turn than what I saw it having. So yeah, that was a standout for me. Also from Marvel, X-Men #11, of course, from Jonathan Hickman, Lionel, I know I'm saying that wrong, Francis Yu and Sonny Go. This was all about some Magneto, and it once again, Hickman writing Magneto is unbeatable. This was an excellent issue, and without spoiling it paints it shows Magneto's actions, which reflect the way his actions have always been in the character's history, can be seen as either heroic or not based on the outlook, based on where you're standing.
It reminds me of
when he's doing his things.
Well, it reminds me of a quote from Star Wars, which is, "Good is a point of view, Anakin." It's where you stand, where you are on the side of history determines your outlook on how somebody performs sometimes.
So I want to say,
their actions heroic or not. Sometimes evil is evil and good is good.
Yeah. And any quotes from the prequels automatically have an asterisk next to them. So back to our roundtable. Voting the prequels. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I know, man. I'm just getting hammered this morning.
Oh, man. Matt's throwing some heat.
Look, it's irresponsible for someone to quote the prequels without there being there's got to be a subtext. There's got to be a note to that.
My man,
I can't have it getting out that we are fully endorsing the prequels. That's not good for us.
I personally endorse the prequels.
But as a show,
whether
as
the podcast does or not is a different story.
And that's exactly my point. Is I wanted to make that distinction.
I feel like Matt
let it
took
be
the high
known
ground.
That Matt does not endorse the prequels.
Take the high ground, Anakin.
Oh gosh!
All right, so we read a book. All 3 of us read it.
So roundtable,
yeah.
DC Black Label, Batman: The 3 Jokers, Book 1 from Geoff Johns, Jason Fabok, and Brad Anderson. So I went into this book. Oh, by the way, this is the part where spoilers are coming and meat and potatoes and stuff. So
hell of a spoiler alert there, Matt.
I went into this book with a very pessimistic outlook on it. I didn't expect I really didn't want to buy this book, frankly, but I made myself do it. And come to find out, I loved this book. This book very much surprised me. The narrative I thought was great. The art was fantastic. Just everything about the colors, everything about this book, the way this book was put together, I really, really dug and just really surprised myself.
Big same.
What's that?
I said big same. It surprised me how much I like this book.
Yeah, man. I mean, yeah. Well, I can't say that I'm sold because just with the material itself, I'm still like, okay, well, what's next? Kind of thing. But they got me on this first one. This first issue was just top notch. Hands too. Yeah. Salute. So the first half of the book is the telling of the story of Batman, Batgirl, and Red Hood. They're trying to track down the Joker. and predict where he will be next. There have been a string of violent crimes committing in Gotham, all done with the obvious purpose of letting Batman know who is responsible, that being the Joker. And it's all Joker modus operandi. So that's the first half of the book. About midpoint of the book is we see what appears to be three Jokers meeting together at a small house. It's a house / shack. And it's three different Joker characters, all in what I took to be classic versions of the Joker. Very classic versions of the Joker. Some are very specific. Like one is obviously the Joker from the Killing Joke book. But none of them have this new, sharper interpretation of the Joker that people have been doing over the past few years. They're all very classic in their appearance. But shortly thereafter, in the book, this meeting, Batman, Batgirl, and Red Hood arrive at the Gotham Aquarium after following a trail of clues. They then soon after get into a confrontation with one of these Jokers. He is eventually subdued, but Batman is immediately called away by Commissioner Gordon. Commissioner Gordon tells him he believes he has another Joker cornered elsewhere in Gotham. So I'm not going to spoil the end, but it comes to a very interesting and definitive conclusion, which surprised me. And where the story picks up from here, I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do, what this creative team does. But that is the gist of the story in a nutshell. And if you're, in passing a Batman fan or a fan of the Gotham universe, we'll call it, I recommend you pick this book up without a doubt. Yeah, it's definitely worth your money. I mean, it's a $7 book before any discount that you receive, obviously. And I thought it was well worth it. Well worth it.
It's $7.
One thing I want to say.
I was going to say it's $7, but it's also 54 pages long, 56 pages long. So yeah. I mean, it's a bigger book. So.
Yeah, it's a prestige format.
Right.
Yeah.
See, I got mine in an actual comic size. Did you got yours in a prestige format in the magazine?
Well, unless I'm using the wrong word. I mean, then with this, it's got the spine, it's got the worded spine, and
either way, it's not the magazine size. It's the comic size.
Yeah. Right. Sorry.
No, and I don't know that means prestige. But it's a regular comic size book as far as fitting in a bag and board and so forth.
Yeah.
And I like that they went with the smaller format versus the larger magazine size that they've been doing for the Black Label. I thought that was a solid choice for this book.
Yeah.
I love the scenes with the actual three Jokers in them.
Yeah.
Where they're arguing about who's the boss and who's not.
Low key arguing. Like it's not an animated, I mean, they're having this very low key who's in charge here conversation. Feels very controlled. It feels like the Joker is not in, he's not in a manic state. He's in a very calculated state. All three of them.
And I have I have a thought on where the story's going, and I'll share it with you two separately, but I don't want to spoil if we're not spoiling.
I mean, why not? We've already set a spoiler warning. So,
okay. I personally think that what they're doing is wrapping up the three Jokers and going to give us one Joker.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was the whole point of the story. My only question is how are they going to do that? That's been my question the whole time.
Well, I think it's going to be a new Joker based on what we saw in this.
Oh, God,
that has all three of the classic Joker's personalities. But I think that's what they're going to do.
Well, that would lead to the disappointment that I was setting myself up for from the beginning.
Well, based on how the ending of this happened, we're already down, one. So, presumably.
Yeah, and part of me wonders if there's not some cloning aspect to this, to the story. And I think the end of the story kind of alludes to the fact that they might be, that you have one, like essentially, like Joker Prime, and that some of the other iterations are in some way created by him. I mean, it doesn't come out and say that, but I think there is a possibility.
They talk about creating a new Joker in this.
Right, yeah, there's a possibility that you can read into that he's using chemicals and stuff to reproduce himself. So part of me wonders if there's some type of cloning. Before I say anything about the story, whoever is at DC who is in charge of art, let Jason Fabok draw whatever the hell he wants. If he wants to draw something, you let that man draw something. These lines are so crisp and gorgeous. Like I couldn't take my eyes off. Like, I had a hard time turning the page. It took me a long time to read this book, and not because of necessarily the size of the book. Partially because Geoff Johns is a wordy bastard when he wants to be, but also because, like, just pouring over this art, there is so much to look at, and it's stunning. Like, there's one, like, kind of half-page spread of Batgirl, which in this book, which frankly should be the image for Batgirl. Like, they should just take that and, like, on whatever Batgirl poster for anything that they're ever going to use it, just use that image because it's that damn good. The fluidity of his panels, I thought, were amazing. Like, there's not a single stiffness, a single stiff panel to this story. He was just so zoned in on it. And to take a character like the Joker and to throw up 3 different iterations, which all share similar features, but they were all recognizably different. And you pick up cues like the Hawaiian shirt or the classic Joker outfit or whatever. So there's definitely visual cues that make that possible just on its face. But he does things with each of, like, the personality that he puts in the Joker's face for each different iteration of the Joker is just masterwork. Like the man is in top of his game, and like I've loved this dude since I saw the work that he did in that Swamp Thing winter. I think it was a Swamp Thing winter special that he did, and it's just like, why is he not on? And I don't know if he's just doing covers or he just makes enough with the commission game, but I have no idea why he's not a premier artist at DC, because he should be. I have no idea the reasons behind that, but he should be able to draw whatever he wants to at any given time, because he's just
There's no doubt this is one of the most beautiful comics I've read this year.
Now,
from the art standpoint,
did y'all pick up on the Pee-wee's Big Adventure
yes.
Easter egg there?
Yeah,
I appreciated that. Large.
So, Matt, I have
trucking.
to ask you, if that's going to disappoint you that that's where they're going, what would be the conclusion of this story that would make you happy?
Well, I mean, I just don't want I can tell you what I don't want. I don't want a supernatural element. I don't want a new Joker that, is born out of this story. Ultimately, in some form, what I would prefer is if it's revealed that there were never 3 Jokers, that the whole 3 Jokers thing was a scheme promoted by the Joker himself. I mean, the Bat universe itself, I hate when they do supernatural things to the Gotham universe. Gotham universe is a street crime story. So when they start making supernatural, that's when, that was the final straw for me with Scott Snyder's run. When he had that I don't know, supernatural goo beneath the bat cave and
metal, yeah.
You know, and I read that and I'm like, get the fuck out of here. I mean, you're turning Batman into a supernatural. That whole bit's it's lazy and stupid to me to take a street level crime universe and make it supernatural.
I don't get that vibe from this book. I don't necessarily think they're making it supernatural. I do think that there's some type of science aspect, and I'm kind of like you. I think this all culminates in the fact that there is just one Joker, right? And I think, I mean,
how do you get to that conclusion, both of you, based on the fact that we have panels with all three Jokers in it?
And again, that's where I think that there's going to be some type of cloning aspect or some type of.
I don't think cloning, you know. It's if you're reading into if like me reading what I want to read into this and seeing what I want to see. I mean, Jesus Christ, you've got essentially, if you look on the page where they're at Ace Chemical, I mean, it's like, well, they're laying it out for you right there. Look at all these people that look like the Joker because he's got this, you know, this Joker Smile X or whatever you want to call it. So how big of a leap would it to be for he has a version of that can essentially turn two people into a version that's going to convince people that there are other Jokers. You know what I'm saying? Like, these people are dead because of it. Well, what if he has manufactured this chemical that keeps somebody alive and they take on his attributes?
Yeah.
I think it absolutely laid out and this is funny that we all got different things from this, but I thought it absolutely laid out that they stole the chemical so that they could make another Joker. I mean, he's sitting there and they're talking and they say, what are we going to do now? And he says, make a better Joker. I mean, he literally says that.
No, like that's what I think that they did, and that's where I think those other two Jokers came from. That's what I'm saying. When I say cloning, I'm not limiting myself to they put Dolly the sheep in a lab and there was a Zap and a Pow and all of a sudden there's two Dolly the sheeps. I'm just saying that he's found a way to replicate himself into these forms of Jokers, and that could be finding somebody with the similar, you know, visual structure that he has. You know, maybe hiring Max Lord to do some brain transplant. I don't know. I'm not saying that there's a definite answer. What Johns is doing is he's playing with the meta aspect of the fact that there's 80 years of this character, and through different writers, they've been written to be different characters, and he's tying it all back up into one. And Johns is he's creative as hell, so I have no doubt that he'll find a way to wrap all this up. I think it's a mixture of the fact that we're going to find out that there was a way that there were these three, like the Joker has split himself in some sense. And I don't know what sense that is, but it's going to culminate back into one. And like I said, I don't know how he gets there, but I don't think there's a supernatural element to it. I don't know that that's really,
I don't think that
style. Either. But I do think that there is a way that he's going to, like, you're going to walk out of this with a singular Joker. And what I kind of think you're going to realize the whole time is this has all been a giant machination of the Joker, of putting these different characters out there to show these different personality types in the way it's been written over decades. He found a way to isolate that in himself, like manifested it into reality somehow. And then it's going to end, and he's going to find a way to bring those things back together. You know,
I mean, at the end of the day, we're going to end up with one Joker with, you know, a personality that probably encompasses all the personalities that we've seen in the Joker.
Yeah.
Boy, I hope it's not all of them. There's some shitty versions of the Joker out there.
the three that they are discussing, the three personalities they're discussing in this book, I guess I should say, will all be in one in a different form or another, I guess. I mean, there's no reason why Joker couldn't be a little bit schizophrenic too, right? It would be perfectly part of who he is. So,
boy, I got opinions on that.
You've got opinions on it? Well, what are those opinions?
Yeah. That it would suck ass if they made him schizophrenic. I mean, the Joker is evil. He's not crazy. That's entirely your opinion, sir. Yeah, the right one.
No,
if you make him crazy, then that's
an opinion.
It's it's like it's no worse than saying Darth Vader's he's not evil. He's mentally ill. He's got depression disorder. That sucks.
It doesn't.
I mean, that's a weak out to make excuses for a character's behavior, excuses or reasons that it's just he's evil. He likes being evil, but he's not mentally.
And you don't think that's a
mental?
You don't think that's a mental issue?
No, it's not. It's not a mental issue. It's not a mental illness.
Oh, I think he's obsessive compulsive. I mean, I think
there's a lot of mental illnesses that any psychiatrist or psychologist could easily pick out of any form of the Joker and pick out many mental illnesses.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, they pick out many because he doesn't fit into one.
If we're gonna get
because you can't categorize him.
Because he's schizophrenic. Because his personality changes all the time.
That's not what schizophrenia is.
Okay.
If we're gonna get clinical about it, I think that we've already established, like, throughout history, that the Joker is at minimum obsessive compulsive. Though, I mean, if Batman doesn't exist, Joker doesn't exist, and that is a form of mental illness. That is a form of mental drive. And like I said, I don't know that there's a need to get clinical. Again, especially if you're playing with the meta aspects of the fact that you did have different personalities creating this character over time. And their different personalities went different places with it. If you look at 80 years of the history, there are multiple personalities to the Joker. Some of them are a lot better than others. Some of them we enjoy better than others, but none of those, because it's canonical, is any less legitimate. And so I think the aspect of playing with those is cool. And again, like I said, I think when we say something like schizophrenic, we're talking about something that has very clear clinical terms in the real world. And what I think that maybe is too rigid of a, like, none of us are doctors. None of us are in a position we can make that type of diagnosis. But I think what we can say definitively is that there are different versions of this character which are real and true to the character at any given time. There are different personality tropes that come through there. And I think putting it between brackets are maybe where it's the fanboy thing, right? Like we want one to be more than the other. And I think a good writer, a smart writer like Johns plays with that, and they won't give a definitive answer. They'll keep it interpretive and they'll keep it obtuse, but they'll keep it will go into a direction that kind of leads or lends credence to one direction. If not one personality.
Don't bring a bad band into this.
Do what?
I said, don't bring a bad band into this argument.
See, I didn't. You did that? Because I didn't make that connection. So, but like, as hot as I am on the art, and as much as I thought the art was amazing, the writing was good. There was nothing wrong with the writing. Like the narrative was there. It was want to, but as I was reading the book, and I actually think there was a line in this book and where the Joker does that whole like comedian thing where, tell me if you've heard this one before. That's what I felt like reading most of this book. I really did feel like there were only about 20 pages of new story in this book, in a book that was like 54 to 56 pages long. Everything else was revisiting stuff that we do this all the time with Batman. And I say I'm using the collective we. Like, it doesn't matter if it's Batman in film, like every 2 or 3 years, you're going to get it in a comic. The animated films are going to do it. I don't know that we needed to dedicate 3 pages, not just 3 panels, 3 full pages to the alley scene to remind people that they went and saw Mask of Zorro and they walked down an alley and Joe Chill shot them and there were pearls and the mob might have been involved. Like I don't know that we needed 3 pages of that. I don't know that we needed like 3 pages of like showing, what 3/4 of Batman's scars were as a way to just run down his rogues gallery list. It didn't serve anything to the story other than showing you that Batman has rogues and that he has scars. At the end of it, that Joker was actually responsible for, a lot of those scars, because it just hit on that. So I think that there was a lot of fluff in the book, even if it was well written and incredibly well drawn fluff. I don't know that I needed to pay $7 is a lot to ask. And luckily, fortunately, it was Jason Fabok. So I'm at the end of the day, I'm not mad that I spent money on this book. Even if I did, so I bought it digitally, but I own those, and like I can blow them up, print them out, do whatever I want to with them because they're gorgeous. But so I'm not upset about it, but it is, if it hadn't have been for that, and if it had just been an artist that was only average, or something like that, I'd have been like, yeah, that's. I feel like I spent overspent by about $3.99 on this book, because you just told me like 4 versions of stories that I've already read. You told me the version of the story that I had already read in The Killing Joke. You gave me the same version of the story that I've already read in Death in the Family. And all of those things, like both of those stories, to anybody who knows Batman, to anybody who's actually going to pick this book up, both of those things were summed up in what the Joker looked like. And that's something that throws back to those cues that Matt was talking about earlier. You give me the Hawaiian shirt or the camera pose, I know everything I need to know about this version of the Joker. I didn't need 2 pages reminding me that he shot Babs. I didn't need the page reminding me that he beat Red Hood to death, and that Red Hood took up the moniker of the Red Hood to.
I don't think that's fair, Caleb. Away. I mean, there's a lot of people that haven't read those stories.
Right, but I don't think people who haven't read those stories are really the target audience for this, because this does play on the nostalgia and what you need to know from those stories. I'm saying that's my personal opinion, but I just feel like you waste. There was a lot of space that was wasted. No, wasted. Wasted is the wrong word, because it's not wasted. It was just used differently than what I think was effective. I think it was fluff.
Oh gosh, I totally disagree with that, because it showed the characters reflecting on their own motivations, for why they're hunting this character down, and how those images and those experiences haunt them.
Yeah, but those things are built into the framework of the character. Yeah, sure, yeah. You showed me why he's hunting. You showed me why you spent 3 pages revisiting the murder of Batman's parents in a book that was $7.99 to remind me that, oh, this is the reason Bruce Wayne is Batman. I didn't need that. I don't need you to remind me that Joker shot Babs and it broke her and it led into her being Oracle and in a wheelchair and broken for so long, just to find that revisiting, because that's built into the genetic structure of the character now after about.
Caleb Alexander McKenzie doesn't need that.
Yeah, I think but that's not a fair criticism of the book at all.
So I'm somewhere in the middle of this, to be quite honest. It's funny that, once again, we all have a different view on this, because at first I leaned way towards Caleb's opinion of this, but as the book played out, I was glad that they did it.
Yeah, I mean,
I think the scene where the Joker is talking to Jason,
mm-hmm.
and telling him, I made you who you are, and you are my Robin. You begged me to let you live. I think all of that was served better because they revisited that earlier in the book.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the ending of the book was served better based on that. But I do agree that, Caleb, when I was first reading it, I felt the same exact thing you're saying. I was like, I don't need all this. But then as the book played on, I felt like it served its intent, if that makes sense.
It did work. I just don't know that it did necessary work to add about 9 pages to a book so they can charge $8 for it, or $7 for it.
But they were going to charge you $7 for this book regardless.
Possibly, and that's fair. So at least they came back and said, "Look, this is the price point we're selling this at. You need to fill it up with something." So maybe.
Oh God, that's totally unfair. No, I mean it. It gives very clear, and really adds gravity to the Red Hoods and Batgirls' motivations and how they feel about the character and how this character's impacted their lives. And again, not everybody has read those stories that came out 20 to 30 years ago. I mean, we got, Craig, how long ago was it you read year one? I mean, and Craig's been reading comics for God knows how long. I mean, it's a reference that I think has to be in the story to, one, show those characters motivations for people that have not read those stories or are unfamiliar with them, and B, refresh that motivation and really add gravity to it.
Right. I'm not saying
when you've got a
I love
whole
that
page
you
of the
I just have to say, I love that you said one and then B. I just have to say that. And you're referencing.
I'm not saying that it didn't need to be referenced in the story. I'm saying that it did need to take up 20% of the story. I'm not saying that you can't reference that. I'm not saying that that's even bad craft to reference that. Of course, it's nostalgia. I mean, again, I've said this like several weeks in a row. Nostalgia is the only thing driving these stories at this point, and that's fine.
Ooh,
you push it.
The only thing.
It's one of I mean, the whole reason we have this book is nostalgia over like 3 other Alan Moore stories that they want to read.
Wow. Okay, so I got a lot more than nostalgia out of this.
I don't find it that it's a bad thing, but it's not it is what it is. But does it need to take up 20% of the story? I don't think it does. I don't know that it needs to take up 10% of the story. And that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about the fact that it's there. We're talking about the fact that it's there in abundance. And it's the repetition of about 150 other stories that have been told.
I guess we should just quit reading comics then if it's all about nostalgia.
Yeah, it sounds like you don't like a lot of comics.
Well,
is what it sounds like to me.
No, I don't like a lot of comics. And that's part of the reason I'm leading away from superhero comics. And I think we've talked about that. Yeah, there's still stuff I read, and sometimes that nostalgia is great. But it's just a whole lot of repetition. And nostalgia is not what drives comics. Nostalgia is what drives superhero comics at this point. That's why your average reader is, mid-30s white dude, 40s white dude. That's why they're us, right? That's why new kids aren't, new young readers and stuff aren't gravitating towards the superhero titles. That's one of the reasons. I'm not saying it's the only reason, but it's nostalgia. That's why we need to. I mean, that's like to see the Mask of Zorro up there, which by the way we just saw in Tinian's book. We saw in Tom King's book. We saw in Snyder's book. We've seen that over and over and over again because it's nostalgia. It reminds you of those stories. The reason that we're talking about this story right here, these 3 Jokers, are to remind us of death in the family, to remind us of those awesome feelings of the Killing Joke that we got when we read those stories for the first time. It's to relive that moment. That's the reason. That's the driving force behind the retelling of this story.
See, and I don't see it that way.
No, it's because it's not that way.
That's because it is.
I don't see it that way at all. I see it that when you have potentially a new group of people reading a book, you have to reference old stuff. I don't think that's nostalgia. I think either that or it's not the same character. I mean, so yeah, you can invent new characters, and I'm fine with that. But if you're going to play with Batman in the Gotham universe, you can't ignore his past. I'm not saying I need an origin story every 10 issues from Batman, but when you're doing a new series,
what you're getting.
That is not what I'm getting.
Every new arc is what you're getting.
I don't believe that at all.
I mean, if that's here's the thing. If that's all you get, Caleb, then you're not a Batman fan, I guess is what it boils down to. I mean, because it's not just nostalgia. There's gravity to those scenes, but if there's no gravity to it for you, then you're not a fan.
Just because it's nostalgia doesn't mean there's not gravity. Like, that's 2 different things. I'm not saying nostalgia is a bad thing. I'm saying nostalgia is a thing. It's the thing. It's not necessarily a bad thing.
You're assuming they're putting those things in there for us.
Yes, pretty much, because like we said, there's a majority of people.
Okay, so nostalgia is nothing but a wanting of the past. That's what nostalgia is.
Yeah, it's an appreciation or a
it's a
memory
wanting
of revisiting.
Of the past.
It's wanting the present to be filled with the feelings of the past. That's what nostalgia.
Yeah, and that's not what
longing
this is.
for the emotions.
This
of the
is
past.
not that. This is so. There's so much more to that than this. This is actually showing.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Matt. Go ahead.
No, I mean, my only point is if this was just nostalgia, it would just be, those panels would not serve a purpose. They would just be stuck in there. but they serve a clear purpose to show what's the internalization of the character. And why that weighs into their next action. Nostalgia would just be if it was put in there as a spread page that didn't carry the story forward.
There's nothing that says nostalgia is not a craft tool. Nostalgia is absolutely a craft tool. It's a narrative device. It's the reason we like mafia movies. It's the reason we like westerns. It's the reason we like period people.
No.
Yeah.
No.
It's absolutely because it's a mechanical piece. If we didn't want that nostalgia, then we wouldn't go back and we wouldn't revisit movies that were part of our past. We wouldn't revisit movies for the first time that are mimicked after certain parts of our history. It's nostalgia, and that's not.
I am
not a
so
bad
far on
thing.
the
It's
other
a
side of the
narrative
page on
tool.
this.
This is no.
I am so far on the other side of the page on this because if you have new comic readers coming into a local comic book store and you say, you should jump on Detective Comics, it's issue 1032 or whatever it is right now. So I have to reread 1,000 issues? No, because eventually they're going to give you what you need to know for this arc. We tell them that all the time. And then you look at this book, which is its own thing that takes place in Gotham, yes. But any new person that's not read Batman up to this point, a local comic book store could hand them this book, and within this book contains all the pages required to understand the ending of this book. That's not nostalgia. That's informing a new audience what they need to know.
Right. No, it becomes nostalgia when you make it like 25% of the book, because they could have done those same two things. No, hang on. They could have no. They could have done those same two things with editor's notes. They didn't. They chose to give you
you can't do that with editor's notes.
That is ridiculous. To say editor's notes add gravity to a story.
Yeah, hey, go back and stop, put this book down and go read Death in the Family and what's the other one? I'm losing my mind right now. But The Killing Joke. You know, put these books down, go read those, or we can take 3 pages and tell you what you need to know from them.
But they didn't tell you what you needed to know
it was
from
done
them.
so well is there was no dialogue over it. It was all just memory.
Yeah.
You know, and I appreciated every single panel of Joker with that crowbar and his body language and the look on his face. I'm like, this is amazing. I mean, it really drove home. And that just being reflective memories. And again, with the Batgirl imagery and the scar. I mean, I appreciated every single one of those. I really felt like it added a lot to the story.
I felt like that one single panel with the scar, I think that was your gravity in that moment. And that's what you needed. And again, I'm just saying, like, they filled up so much of this, like, it wasn't just a panel to remind you. And yeah, it could be done certainly can be done in more than an editor's note, but they spent literally 20% of the book revisiting those moments. And that's a choice, right? I personally found that to be like, just, okay, like, can we get past this now and get on to the new story? And again, for a book that cost me $7.99 of gorgeous art, 50 something pages of gorgeous art, 20% of it was just revisiting of something that I think the majority of people who have watched, any of the animated films, I mean, yes, so certainly there are people who haven't ever read this, but the majority of people who are picking this book up have read this. Like
unless they just walked into the store and this is a book you can hand them to jump them into a Batman story that gives them back story on 3 of the main characters.
Motivation.
In the Gotham, yeah. I think it serves both purposes, and I think to ignore one is silly.
I'm not ignoring it. I'm not saying it's not a purpose. I'm saying it's not worth spending the amount of time that he did on it that could have been filled with actual story. Again, like I said, I think that the difference here is that I didn't need 10 pages of it. I could have had 5 pages of it, split the panel. You guys appreciated the fact that there were 10 pages of it, and that's fine. I'm not knocking you for liking that. I'm saying for me.
Yeah,
I didn't need that, and I don't need.
And that was my point a few minutes ago. I said Caleb didn't need that.
That's.
I mean, I can't argue that. I can't argue your feelings on it. But to say that it's just nostalgia, I can argue that.
Yeah.
Because I think it serves more purpose than just nostalgia. I think there is a part of it that's nostalgia. And like I said at the beginning of this, is I was a little bit in the middle of this because I felt the same way. But when I got to the end of the book, I was like, oh, now it makes sense why we got all of that.
Yeah.
It added gravity to the end of the book, in my opinion.
No, I certainly think it added gravity to the book.
Both of their actions were and I'm talking about Jason and Babs, both of their actions were responses to what we saw earlier in the book.
Sure. Yeah. Like, I'm not saying they weren't.
You're just saying it could have used
That's not
less,
my argument. Yeah, I'm not saying that it didn't serve the story. I'm saying that it could have served the story in about 40% more economic storytelling. So,
but then I go back to what Matt said, which is there were no words in those panels. It was just memory flashbacks.
Yeah.
And beautiful memory flashbacks.
Gorgeous.
Not mad at it at all. But I get what you're saying, and I'm not going to argue your point on it. Just, I'm good. I'm fine. You believe what you want to believe. Love you, Caleb.
I don't believe you. I'm gonna.
What? That I love you?
Yes, I'm questioning your love for me.
You're saying your percentages are off, Greg?
Yeah, by about 40%.
Well, there's no doubt my percentages are off.
So, you guys sticking around with this book? What's the deal?
I think it's great that they're. Do what? I'm sorry.
I was asking if you guys, but go ahead. I was asking if you guys were planning on sticking around on the book.
I definitely am.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I plan to be disappointed in the way that Geoff Johns wants to disappoint me.
I plan on being disappointed. I am afraid I will be disappointed, but I'm not planning on being disappointed. So, let me just put down in my calendar, disappointment, month 3.
Oh, the real question is would it being Geoff Johns is will it actually come out periodically, or will it come out, whenever he gets around to the next issue?
Oh man.
Is it in the can already before they launched it?
Yeah,
or is it going to be another, 3-year, 12-issue series?
God bless, please no.
I think this one's supposed to be 4 issues, right?
Yeah, I thought this one was a 3 or 4 issue.
It's 3 or 4 issues.
I'm hoping they've already got it in the can.
Well, what I hope they don't do is start gaining speed and they're like, "Ooh, let's stretch this baby out."
Right.
So, all these fears. I have so many anxieties over the upcoming issues of this story.
We're all going to have to take Prozac for this. One thing I absolutely love is that we had 3 people that read this and have varying opinions on where it's going, what it's doing, and how it got there.
Well, and
which just means it's good story.
I'm not trying to make a forecast on where it's going. I just know where I do not want it to go. I don't know where what Geoff Johns is going to do with this is way up in the air. I just know what I'm afraid it's going to do.
I'm going to go off of what he showed us in this book and believe what he showed us to be true.
Yeah. And so,
a lot of faith in Geoff Johns you got there.
Well, I think we're all gun shy because of Doomsday Clock, right? Like, I don't think we can ignore Doomsday Clock as an aspect of this. And what happened.
God, I wish we could ignore Doomsday Clock.
Well, okay, I'm talking about in relation to our fears of this book, as far as when it came out, because that book did take what 2.5 years to come out in 12 issues.
Yeah, for 12 issues.
Ended with a freaking wet thud too.
It did, and that's some of that stuff where I don't necessarily think that you're going to have that with this, because Doomsday Clock was a lot more editorially driven. It was a lot more supposed to be effective to the entire DC universe. I think at the time that they forecasted it and plotted it and planned it, they had more ideas of it being a major force on
the whole
entire
point of that book.
DC.
I think if it's what you're trying to say is that the whole point of that book was to tie in Watchmen to the DCU.
Right, and they changed their mind very quickly.
Yeah.
And it's, I think part of that was too, but I also think that they had plans for that book to really have ripples and effects throughout the entirety of the line, whether it was just with the.
Oh yeah, they were blowing themselves throughout the entire narrative of that book. Yeah,
Right.
they could. Yeah, it was awful.
I don't think you're going to see that with this book because I don't think that they have these line-wide continuity effective outside of course Batman, but like they're not. This book's not going to affect Wonder Woman. This book's not going to affect anything and everything that's happening in all the corners of the DC universe, like they had initially in its inception thought about Doomsday Clock. And so I don't think that you're going to see the thumb of editorial start to weigh down on this book, which I think was largely part of the problem with Doomsday Clock. Fabok is a little bit.
I just can't keep
artist.
blaming bad writing in DC on editorial.
No, I don't necessarily. So that's also where you and I differ. I don't see, like, I don't think Doomsday Clock was a lot of bad writing as much as it was like decent writing without spirit to match somebody else's whims. Like on some level, the writing and the story wasn't bad. And I think if we go back and read Doomsday Clock as a whole, there's actually a lot to appreciate there. You don't have to, Matt.
There's aspects of it that I love. Yeah, I'll say that.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think you can see, like, in that book, you can see where they just decided to go a different direction. And I don't necessarily think that was Johns. But you also can't ignore the fact that, in some level, Johns is editorial at DC. And so that also, like, you can't take that away from either. So I guess I'm writing that fence post and saying that on some level it could have been editorial, but if Geoff Johns is the editorial, then it's just Geoff Johns. So I don't know.
Well, I think the delays in the book caused it to not match up any longer with what was happening in the main universe. But that's getting away from the book that we're talking about. Is this book actually taking place in continuity? Because most of the Black Label is its own thing.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, the whole point is supposed to be to clean up the three Jokers thing that's hanging out there, but how they're going to weave that into continuities.
Their best thing is just to ignore the three Jokers.
I agree. Yeah.
Well, I don't know, because Killing Joke was not originally supposed to be canonical, and they decided to make it canonical. So, you know, who's to say
the only part of it that's canon is her getting shot, which is really bizarre. Yeah, because I mean, at the end of that book, Batman killed Joker. So let's not pretend that it's all canonical.
No, that's true. I guess, and that's where I was going with the fact that, like, that book, like, nothing about that book was supposed to be canon.
That's
and then
right.
They took part of it and they made it canon. And so even if this book is not canon, who's to say that they can't go back later and, like, they can pick and choose. At the end of the day, I don't think we need to get too hung up on canon, especially with these Black Label books, because it's going to change if they want it to change.
Well, I mean, that's every story in every comic book.
Yeah, that just leads us to getting angry and confused later. So,
but I'd rather be angry and confused today.
Done.
That's just what 20 I'm going to say, and we don't have to try.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely staying on this book. I'm digging it. I'll stay on it for the art alone.
Yeah, same here. No, I'm definitely on, and not to say I won't jump off if it takes a turn that's pretty disgusting. I won't be burned again, like I was with the Doomsday Clock.
The art for this cover.
Oh gosh.
Oh, any page in this book.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna pick up the single issues. I want to read this in its entirety, because it does beg a lot of questions, and I need those questions answered, like, kind of immediately, not necessarily over the series of months, where I'm gonna forget things. So I'm gonna wait and pick it up hopefully they do a nice hardcover collection of this, because I think it would look cool on the shelf, and plus, like I said,
that would be nice.
So.
Assuming it turns out well at the end, it would be nice.
Yeah. I don't know. I still like, for me personally, I still want to own. There's lots of stories that don't end well that I still want to own in a collected edition, because I don't think just because of the ending, they don't land the ending, that doesn't mean from a narrative standpoint. Like, there's lots of stuff in stories that in the first few issues I think are worthwhile, even if I don't like the last of the story.
Yeah, that's how I feel about Tom King's Batman run.
Yeah.
Sorry, Caleb. I had to go there. You threw the door open, and I just had to walk through. I'm sorry.
Again, I don't believe you.
I believe it was all editorial.
No, to be fair, I was going to say, to be fair, I also feel that way about Tom King's run, because you can see where Snyder shit on it. So that we're both of the same feeling. I think we just have different stuff ruminating on it. So, well, all right, we'll go pick up Three Jokers if you haven't. It's fun stuff.
Yeah, and we did not spoil the ending for you, believe it or not, after talking about it for 40 minutes.
Oh, just because we're not through talking about the amazingness of Fabok, did y'all see that Batmobile?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I got giddy. It made me think of the Batmobile of old, which is nostalgic.
I love
it's awesome.
Yeah. Speaking of all of that, we did not talk about the Bat Museum in the Batcave, which I thought was one of the better parts of the book as well, as far as the art goes.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say Bat Museum, are you talking about the different suits? Or are you talking about just the different look to it?
Well, no, in the Batcave,
mm-hmm.
when he's walking through, not only do you see Bab's old costume and
mm-hmm.
Jason's old costume and his old costume, you see the Riddler, you see Bane, there's kind of all these different, it's what I would consider to be a museum of both his allies and Rogue Gallery.
I think I picked up on that too. I think we've seen him have his old suits and the Robin suits in there before.
Yeah.
Have we ever seen any villain suits inside the Batcave, or is that a new thing? Because I
never have noticed that before. It doesn't mean it hasn't been there, but I've never noticed it.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool.
I thought it was a pretty cool little thing, and it was, a chance for Fabok to be able to draw all of his different rogues, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love, I'm trying to think of anybody who's drawn the Batcave as well as Capullo, which is hard to imagine. But Capullo does a lot of that. Like, if you look at his double page spreads when he's inside the Batcave, he puts in all these little elements that I just think is incredible. And it was good to see some of that. There's just so much to praise about the art of this book.
Yep. Good story, good art, good book. For me, it was worth every penny. Let's move on to the next thing.
I was going to say, what else we got? What you guys want to talk about? It's Sunday.
It is the Chaos episode.
You ain't got nothing to do.
And it's Friday, and I know you don't get high. So it's our Chaos episode, and for some silly reason, you guys left it to me to pick the Chaos topic this week. And I thought we would discuss non-Big Two comics that we would like to see in some other form of entertainment, either through a television series or a movie adaptation. So, Matt, why don't you go first? What would be a series you would like to see?
This, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 listed out. And I assume that the big one that's the hardest to ignore when it comes to this, and you two tell me if you don't agree, from Image, Saga from Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples.
Yeah.
I mean, is that just begging to be a series or what?
It is.
It's also begging to be finished.
For sure.
Yeah. That one,
maybe if it got optioned, they would hurry up and finish it.
I'm sure it's already been optioned. Like I'd be
You think?
very
Oh
surprised.
shit! If it's been optioned, brother, that'd hit the headlines, man. If it'd been optioned, that'd be all over the CBRs and Bleeding Cools. That'd be big news if it'd been optioned.
It was. Y'all talk about it.
Either
I'm
way,
doing some
I
Googling.
would love to see it.
Well, and I think that would have that one I think would have the most mass appeal out of all the others I have listed anyway. I think that one would probably have the most mass appeal out of anything else that I would like to see adapted. And probably, and given, obviously we're talking about it has a, quality production staff, yada, yada, yada. I think that's a no fail if they put a Games of Thrones type effort into that story.
Yeah, so
couldn't lose.
Speaking of that, then where would you want it seen? Would it be an HBO type series where they could put that kind of money into it and not be versus Netflix or something of that nature?
Netflix could do they could put just as much money into it.
Would you get the same story though?
Correct. Yeah, as of today, I don't have the same kind of faith in their writers that they hire. I mean, HBO just seems to get the best writers on any given subject. That'd be my only concern is Netflix just, them having the right people to tell the story.
Yeah.
All right.
I just think HBO is the most dependable.
In 2018, Brian K. Vaughan signed a 3-year, 6-figure deal to adapt his comics Saga and Why the Last Man with legendary features. Nothing has happened for it yet, and that ends at the end of this year. Sometime.
So
it has been.
If you listen to any comic book creator, they'll tell you that they're perfectly fine with it getting optioned and never turned into anything.
Well, they still
because then they get the rights back and they can sell it again. So I would be totally down for Saga. It's absolutely been one of the better comics of the last 15 years, 20 years, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Caleb, what's one that you would like to see?
So I was thinking about this, and so I actually spent a lot of time this week thinking about this because, especially with it being big two, these questions are always hard for me, especially because I kind of stand on the ground that while comics are similar to storyboards, not every comic needs to be adapted, and that people shouldn't view them as a shoe-in to film.
For sure.
But also that there are a lot of stuff that would translate well to film. So there's a book. It's a graphic novel published by Drawn and Quarterly, and I want to say I spoke about this on the podcast in the early days sometimes. But the book is written by a guy named Guy Jussilet, and it's called Hostage. And in this book, essentially, this guy who is working for, I want to say the UN, it's been a few years since I've read it, but he was working for the Peace Corps or the United Nations or something like that, essentially as he would go in and take care of people. He was doing philanthropic work, volunteer work in war-torn countries. And he was kidnapped by terrorists. And essentially the goal was to ransom this man, and I want to say he's French, and they were hoping to ransom him to use that as leverage against the country of his origin for whatever reason. He was held for a very, very, very extended amount of time, and the book itself does a really good job of playing with the claustrophobia that goes into being a hostage. They kept him alone in a room where all they would do is it's they kept him chained to a radiator or chained to a wall. There was nothing in there, and all they would do is come in once a day to remove whatever kind of waste and or feed him just enough to keep him alive. With over a year with no communication, no outside. His captors spoke a different language than he did, and he was only able to pick up on a few things. He got to know them in a way based off of the inflections of their voices and their personalities. By being that, I think that it would work really well as a film, especially if done seriously. If it was taken as kind of what we consider to be Oscar bait and done in a really art film kind of manner, where they weren't trying to make it super action oriented. They really played up the quiet moments of it. I think that this movie would make an excellent film. It would, in many ways, and I know I've talked about this film a lot this year, but it makes me think of The Lighthouse. Like this book did a lot of the same work as The Lighthouse. You don't know if you're going crazy. It's very isolationist. It's very claustrophobic. There are very few voices. Like if it was done in a manner like that, I think that you would have an extremely well done film. I don't know if everybody would go see it. I'm not saying it would be a tentpole film and break the bank, but it would.
That's an art house movie if I've heard one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it would do
while you're talking about it, and talking about the claustrophobia and so forth, I keep thinking of the movie Buried with Ryan Reynolds.
Oh yeah,
I keep thinking about Johnny Got His Gun.
Yeah.
That sounds like that sounds like the Johnny Got His Gun narrative. Yeah.
So I could see that happening and being a very good. You'd like to see that as a movie?
I think it has to be. Yeah.
Okay.
I think
too slow for a series.
Essentially, it would be. I mean, maybe you could do a Netflix thing on this where you had 9 to 10 episodes on it. As far as like episode 1, he's taken episode 2, or if you did it in a way that like kind of like the BBC does films. I want to say the film that just hit Netflix as far as like Dracula, but that was only worth watching for the first 2 episodes.
I understand what you mean though, where it's like a 4-part movie.
Yeah, kind of.
Or break the acts up into different series. You have like a 3-part. Act 1 is episode 1. Act 2.
Right, like I'm thinking about the way that they did Sherlock, the actual BBC film Sherlock. They were like an hour and a half long, 4-episode seasons. Each episode was an hour and a half long. They did it in 4 parts. Like if they did it like that, I think it would work. But I don't think you can have like a 13 to 15 episode season, because a lot of it's just going to be him like alone in a room pontificating. So and so much of the book was done. It was repetition. It was showing you like day after day after day, Groundhog Day, the same thing. And I'm never going to survive this or get out. Just hurry up and kill me.
Gotcha. So the first one that I would like to see made into a series, and this one was actually at one point optioned, and it was optioned by BBC. Speaking of BBC, but this is Peter Panzerfaust by Curtis Wybe and Tyler Jenkins. And this is, of course, a retelling of Peter Pan, where it takes place during World War II, and Peter is an American that is stuck in France during the occupation and is trying to help a group of orphans not only get through France during this time, but actually become a freedom-fighting group that helps the Allied nations in fighting Germany in Europe. And it's a really good retelling of Peter Pan, and it has all the characters kind of in new forms. Hook is a officer in the German army that Peter actually cuts off his hand at one point. So it really kind of follows the story of Peter Pan, taking out the mythological parts of it, really, really good story. And I would love to see this done as a series. I don't know that it would have to be on something like HBO. I think Netflix or Prime could do very well with it, because it's just a war story, basically, with kids and teenagers. It would be a lot of good storytelling, in my opinion.
I love some Tyler Jenkins art.
Yeah, the art in this book is absolutely beautiful. And Curtis Wybe is a great storyteller as well. You also know him from Rat Queens.
Mm-hmm.
So, Matt, what else you got, bud?
Well, and again, I'm kind of attacking this from my list from what I think is most likely to succeed. Yeah. Maybe not necessarily most likely what I would most like to see, And I think of the list I have, the second most likely to succeed is, again, from Image, Jeff Lemire and Dustin Nguyen's Descender series.
Oh, yeah. Going with the sci-fi today, aren't you?
Well, yeah, it didn't occur to me. I guess so. That's a very linear story. It's not. It doesn't feel as narratively complicated and heavy as Saga, and it does. I mean, Jeff Lemire does this a lot. It gives a hell of a lot of human gravity to each individual character, and I think that would really come through in a series. And now this is one I think Netflix could do. This is one that I think a lot of studios could do because the narrative is so much more streamlined than Saga.
Yeah.
But the way what stands out to me, what I would think, and I'm trying to think of series that would be different. The ones I'm thinking of, okay, this would be somewhat unique that we've not seen before. Saga, I mean, obviously that'd be a lot different from what we've seen in a lot of different series. But in Descender, to me, the big standout that I think would get the most attention is the way Jeff Lemire humanizes the robots in the story. He makes you care more about robots than I think any other story, at least I've ever read, comes close to.
Driller is a killer.
Driller is a killer, man. Now he's a comedy bot.
Best
that
yeah.
line.
Best
yeah,
line.
that line cracked me up, man.
Yeah.
Best line of the book.
Such a good story. And, having actually a built-in sequel to it, if it succeeds, is nice as well.
Sure, yeah.
Because it's its own story, complete and total within its, own volumes, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But if it were to succeed, you've got Ascender, which would be fantastic as well. So
sure.
So I have a theory on Matt's sci-fi thing.
Yeah.
And this is not straight from my brain. I think other people have talked about this before, but I think with a lot of these type of books, we look at them and say, oh, especially with sci-fi, like, no, we can do this now, is because the special effects of film has finally caught up to a place where you can do them in a way that really I don't think that we'd have ever trusted film to be able to do before.
Well, I would feel that way about Saga, definitely. But
yeah.
Descender, you could do Descender in a Star Wars, the original Star Wars type special effects environment. There's not a lot of again, it's just the sci-fi stuff part of it is the backgrounds. You have a little bit of robotics, and again, going back to, so it wouldn't take you, and it wouldn't be conceivably, it wouldn't be an extraordinarily expensive show to do, like Game of Thrones was.
Well, the great thing about it is most of it takes place in ships and so forth, so you don't even need a lot of,
It feels small. I mean, it's an intergalactic story that feels small. It's really interesting, the feeling in that book versus Saga. I compare those two a lot.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, I've never really considered what Descender might look like if it was done in a Star Wars, like puppeteer live props kind of way. And that's my favorite part about Star Wars is that they
never say Star Wars and puppeteer again, please.
Why?
Practical effects.
Okay,
practical effects, sir.
Let Guillermo del Toro do that, or somebody. But yeah,
Del Toro would kill it.
Yeah, it's done by somebody who loves practical effects and who isn't going to let Rian Johnson do it. Who's gonna
Ryan?
Is it Ryan? Okay, sorry.
I was like, who?
No, it's okay. That's a common thing people do.
Yeah, like let him do it. He loves practical effects. Like that would be really cool to see Ascender or Descender done that way, and Ascender.
Yeah. Awesome choices, Matt. What's your second book, Caleb?
Ooh, so I went with one, and I think this one would have to, unlike my first choice, I think this one would have to be done sequentially. I think it would have to be a television show. It would also be a IP nightmare as for the legal department because it utilizes so many different things that are probably wrapped up into copyright ownership, and that is Jason Youngblood's Weapon Brown. The comic was published. I'm not sure if it was originally published, but the copy that I have was published by Death Ray Graphics. If you don't know this book, essentially it is a post-apocalyptic take on Charlie Brown. So the world has came to an end, like the nukes were flying, there's irradiated things, and Weapon Brown is this, beefed up, imposing figure with a metal arm and the little Charlie Brown curl with a dog that is an attack murder beast. And he goes around and like some of his, he works with a person who is an obvious analog for Popeye. He's fighting against people who, are analogs for like Hagar the Horrible, the Wizard of Id. I got to quit saying, as I talk about this thing. Figures that we know from comic strips. Like beloved, like Calvin and Hobbes are terrible people in this book. It's amazing.
That is fitting.
And I think you could take a story like this and you could turn it into a grindhouse television show, and it would just eat ratings up. Because again, like you're leaning on these IPs that we all know and love, and we all think of them dearly as these kind of innocent, moralistic tales. And seeing Charlie Brown just murder Calvin is fucking rad. And he goes through, like I said, he uses so many of the characters throughout the history of these comic strips. And on some level, he is still moralizing. Like by the end of the book, there is still something you glean from this book, much in the way that you do from so much of Charles Schultz's work, like Peanuts and things. There is a tale of perseverance there. Garfield ends up being this like Dune-esque worm creature who is eating the core of the planet. It's incredibly cool.
I love Snoopy, right? But
yes.
There is no way that Snoopy the Beagle is beating Hobbs the Tiger.
Oh,
in what world will a Beagle take out a tiger?
Have you not read Weapon Brown?
I read part of it. I did not finish it.
Oh my God. Oh, this ain't your daddy's Snoopy.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
And what's cool about this book, and I think it would work really well if they adapted this to the film. The book, like Jason Youngblood, as he's drawing this book, he's using different artist styles. Like he's I use the word aping, but I don't mean that derogatorily. He's purposely doing it. So as you're flipping through this book, there's so many just iconic styles that you see that will remind you of comic artists, especially like during the late 90s, early 2000s. As you look through a page, there's absolutely, there's Savage Dragon influence here. As you go to another page, you're going to see some Magnolia influence. And he's purposely doing that because I think he thought of this as more just like an exercise. Like I want to learn these different styles. And I think that they could adapt that to the film, and they take that method and they apply different filmmakers' quote unquote styles. Something that you would recognize as being, we mentioned his name, like, okay, this dude's making a TV show that's reminiscent of Guillermo del Toro, or this dude's making a TV show that's reminiscent of the style of Tarantino. Just something like that. Or this was shot in a way that makes you think of like The Americans. And I think that would be a really cool nod to the spirit of the comic done in a sequential television kind of way.
Yeah, I think that'd be badass. My second book is also post-apocalyptic. It is also Brian K. Vaughan, and it has also been optioned. and that is Y the Last Man, which is the story of Yorick Brown and his monkey Ampersand when they wake up one day and find out they are the only two male of any species left alive on the planet. And they have to, well, they don't have to do anything, but they start traveling to Washington to try and...
Hasn't that already begun filming?
I don't think it has. It's been optioned.
Okay. I thought I read something that production had started on that.
Has it? Okay. Well, I can go on to another one then.
Yeah, I think it's cheating to pick one that's already in production.
Okay. I'll go with
Stop cheating,
Chew.
Craig.
I'll go with Chew by Rob Guillory and John Layman, which is the story of what happens in a post-pandemic world when the bird flu wipes out a bunch of people. And the FDA becomes the most powerful federal agency on the planet. We've talked about it at length in this podcast at different times, but Chew also has been optioned at a different time. And they've talked about making it animated. They've talked about making it live action. I think it would be perfect as an animated series. But it would also, I think they could do it live action as well. What would your thoughts be on live action versus animated, Matt?
That's a tough one, man. So here's what would be much more difficult to capture if it's live action, and that's the humor bent on it.
Yeah, see, and that's kind of my take on it. I think if you do animated, you get more of the humor.
It'd be a lot easier because you can actually animate the characters, well, frankly, like Rob Guillory did, in that very overexpressive type way. In live action, that's going to be a hell of a lot harder to pull off. It'd be awesome if they did. I mean, if they could pull it off, I'd much rather it be live action because, some of the imagery in that book done in a live action, scene would be amazing. I mean, the first time he bends over to taste evidence, it's just, it'd be incredible.
I have a question. Why does it have to be either or? Just Roger Rabbit it.
Oh God, no! Don't ever bring that up again, please.
I loved Roger Rabbit at the time, but you think about taking that style of meshing animation with live action done today, and not trying to make it look like it's realistic. I'm not talking about having somebody and trying to make them, doing the Marvel Disney thing where Groot actually looks like he fits into that world. Really play up the animation of it, make it look like Rob Guillory's animation. Juxtaposed with live action.
Two words for you. Cool world.
I don't know.
It was a really bad movie in the late 80s, early 90s that, Kim Basinger. Was it Brad Pitt or was it?
It was Brad Pitt, my friend.
Was it Brad Pitt? Yeah.
He was in that trash.
Oh, I was thinking Monkey Bones, which was another bad one.
Oh, I remember that was Chris Kattan.
No, that was Brandon Fraser.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, was Chris Kattan not in that too?
He might have been, but Brandon Fraser was the
lead.
The lead in it. And it's so bad I couldn't tell you who else was in it.
You're better off not talking about it.
So yeah, I think it could work. My thing is I think that if you did a mixture, it may scare off some people that would otherwise see it, which would also be the thing with making it animated. You're going to stand that same chance. So, but I think animated or even a mixture would be great if it was done well. So
that one's on my list too, by the way. I knew we were going to have some crossover.
Yeah.
And
we had talked about 2. Do we want to go another round?
I got more.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Matt, what's your next one?
So the next one on my list that I think, again, in order of what I think is likely to be successful, next one is from Avatar Press by Warren Ellis and Mike Wolfer, Gravel.
Sold right now. Sold. I'll go see it with you. Can we hold hands?
Yeah.
That is perfect for
Is that the combat magician?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Perfect for it. I mean, that's a BBC show. That's I mean, you could do a hell of a lot with that series, and it'd be relatively easy to pull off. Again, it wouldn't be a mega budget show to make, and it's the character is just, I mean, would slide right into a episodic series.
I would be down for that. Now, I unfortunately missed out on the original Gravel and only read the subsequent volumes. One of these days I'm going to have to pick up the original and read it.
Mean?
Well, they did there was a second volume that came out not long ago that was not by the original creators, if I remember correctly.
Oh.
And yeah. So I need to read the original Gravel.
Yeah. Well, the original goes back to a miniseries called Strange Killings.
Yeah. See, I read Gravel, the magician or whatever it was, the combat magician, which was later.
Well, so I don't know what version you're talking about, but the same creative team did a standalone Gravel series.
Yeah, I need to look more into it because I feel like what I read.
Matt beat me to it. I was remembering Strange Killings and I think Strange Killings actually came before, but I think I want to say I'd let you borrow one of these at one point. That may be what you're referencing.
Maybe. Either way, I need to read the whole series because I picked it up in the middle, and maybe it was the same original creative team, but I picked it up in the middle and I was kind of lost. So, Caleb, what would your next one be?
Oh, this one's hard. So I'm trying to think of, because I've got several. Part of me wanted to say Harrow County, but I think I've already expressed that before in another episode. So, go back and listen to that other episode if you're wondering why Caleb's not talking about his favorite graphic novel. Or favorite series, not favorite graphic novel. That's a different story. But I think I am going to go with, you know what, in the spirit of Matt and the love for sci-fi and the love to see something really cool on screen. I would love to see, and this would have to be adapted for, I think, television in some sense, but Grimjack. I would love to see them do a Grimjack show. Are either of you familiar with Grimjack?
I am not.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I felt like this was a book that Matt had probably read before. So Grimjack it was done by First Comics way back in the day. I think IDW has the license now. It was created by Tim Truman and John Ostrander of Superman fame and of just generally being John Ostrander fame. So Grimjack he's part space pirate, part mercenary, part gladiator, and part space cop. So essentially in the world that Grimjack lives in, he can dimension hop, and he goes into these different dimensions trying to find these, quote unquote criminals who he is, like I said, he's a mercenary. So he's trying to get them and take them back in to collect a bounty on them. And like, that's just the kind of the impetus. And of course that leads into dozens of other adventures where he, has to realize things, and maybe the bad guys aren't necessarily the bad guys, and he picks up a sidekick along the way. But he operates out of this place, and this is really the only reason I want this, is I want to see Munden's Bar on screen, because Munden's Bar is, imagine the, okay, go. It's like we've said Star Wars before, so imagine the cantina, but in a weird dimension hopping sci-fi-esque existence that would probably give everybody nightmares. So I want to see that done, because Munden's Bar is an incredible place. I'd love to see it on the big screen. And look, he's got a really cool design. Like I said, he's part space pirate. He's part paramilitary psycho. He's got a lot of shit going on, but he he's not an easy figure to like, and I think that would, like, from an anti-hero aspect, I think that would play up really well on screen. And again, I think you would just get to do so much stuff visually. It would be expensive to make, but you would get to do so much stuff visually, because as he goes into these different dimensions, the different dimensions look different. They really showcased in the comic, they showcased Tim Truman's ability to go insane and just draw everything. And yeah, like they taking that and putting it on, like I said, it would have to be, HBO, Netflix, maybe Hulu would put a budget behind it, but it's cool stuff.
Very cool. It's something I would definitely watch if it were on. My third book, I'm going to go with Transmetropolitan, which would be Warren Ellis and Derek Robertson. I think this would be timely based in today's political culture, but Spider Jerusalem, who's the main character in this, is essentially a futuristic analog for Hunter S. Thompson. And he returns from self-exile to start reporting on the current presidential election, where you have the Beast, who is the incumbent president that he can't stand, going up against the Smiler, which he considers to be the lesser of two evils until he actually starts investigating them. So, yeah, it would be a very interesting take on politics done in a futuristic cyberpunk world. And I think with Warren Ellis's humor portrayed correctly, it would be fantastic. Of course, with this one, it would be all about the casting, I think, and getting the right person to play Spider Jerusalem. Because if you miss on that casting, you'll never get it. But,
swimming against the tide.
Yeah, because you would have to nail the casting and get the right person, and it would have to be somebody that could carry this kind of story on their own, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you tell somebody it's a story about a journalist, they're not gonna be super excited to watch it. Right. But trust me, it's very well worth it.
I actually thought about this the other day, and I don't know if it would be a good pick as much as an interesting pick, but the dude who plays Klaus in Umbrella Academy, I think if you shaved his head and you let him really play up the drug-riddled, flamboyant aspects of Spider Jerusalem, I think he might make an interesting version of that character.
I mean, I haven't seen Umbrella Academy, so...
Say what?
Yeah, I haven't. I need to, but I haven't. One of those bad decisions I make that Matt talks about all the time.
At least you're consistent.
Yeah. So that's 3 from each of us, and I think that's 9 pretty good titles to take. Do you guys have any honorable mentions?
Oh, yeah. I got my honorable mention is the beloved Martial Law by Pat Mills and Denny O'Neil. Kevin O'Neil.
I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, Kevin O'Neil. Oh, my God. Of course, this would just be a movie. I would like to see this as, this could be easy. Let's make it a Netflix movie. I'd love it. Do this think of the Deadpool movie kind of atmosphere, that whole tone. Oh, God, I'd eat it up. Man, it'd be amazing.
Caleb, do you have a...
Oh, do I have them? I do. And as I said, I had it. My brain went blank. So why don't you go ahead and tell yours, and I'll tell mine next.
I actually didn't. I prepared 3, and my brain's fried. So
I love how Caleb goes, boy, do I ever.
Okay, well, no, as I'm looking up this, so I was looking up the name of the series because I can't remember it off the top of my head, but John Allison has got a series, and it, like, shame on me for not being able to remember it because it's won awards. I've read all of it that I can read. It's incredibly good. It's about 3 girls who are in college together going on insane adventures. I love John Allison. I think that would make for a great TV show. Of course, I said earlier, Harrow County. There's so many. Like there's too many to list. There's There's a manga called My Brother's Husband, which I would love to see get turned into a film. I think it would be an excellent film, and it would break your heart. And it could be done just, again, you could do it as an art house film. You could do it as a tentpole film. It would be just a genuinely good drama. That, again, I think hell, you could do it in one of those quote unquote family style movies, which would be interesting because it's a queer story. But yeah, I think that would be excellent. So there's tons. And why can't I think of the fucking John Allison book? I don't know what's wrong with me today. But you know what I can think of?
What books to get next week?
Well, but I was going to say I can think of.
I can never read your segues. I never know where you're segueing to next. So.
Then they're not good segues. I need to do better. Slap me on the hand there. I can think of how awesome it is when I see people sign up for our Facebook group, and how awesome it is when I see people like our stuff on the Instagram or the Twitter. And I would love it if everybody listening to the show came and follow us on all of those. Not just because we want the numbers, but because we genuinely want to interact with you. It's fun, builds a community. Especially since we have listeners from literally all across the globe. How awesome is that for three guys sitting in Arkansas? Who've got listeners.
As we're coming upon our 3-year mark of doing this.
I know, it's cray.
Yeah, getting close to 3 years of this.
Also, you can totally go support as we lean into the next little, our end section of the show, which we're going to tell you about some books you should go pick up next week. And while you're doing that, the best way to do that is to kind of support your local comic shop if you're able to right now. If they're not closed because of COVID, or you've got one within driving distance. If you're in Central Arkansas, we totally recommend going to Kapow Comics over in Sherwood. It's on Kill Avenue. It's awesome. It's where all of us met. You go in there. And Jerry's not there anymore. Matt and Tony will treat you so many ways. You're bound to like one of them. Not all of them are going to be great. Matt will get it, but you're going to like one of them. And they're good people over there. So if you're in Central Arkansas, go check out our home shop and tell them we sent you. You won't get a discount for it, but they'll at least know you come from good people. So, Matt,
very nice.
What are you picking up next week?
So I'm looking forward to, from Boom Studios, this book is titled "We Only Find Them When They're Dead."
What did I tell you, Caleb?
Yep.
Yeah, I can't believe you let me go first, because as soon as I get this telegraphed, that I would pick this one. So this one from Al Ewing and Simone DeMeo. For fans of decorum and Something is Killing the Children comes a new sci-fi epic. And the synopsis of this is like, holy crap. The harvesting of corpses to feed of giant aliens to survive. Gods found on the edge of the human race. Autopsy ships. Salvage meat. Listen to this description, kids.
Autopsy ships.
I am excited for that one.
Yeah, man.
What else are you excited for, Craig?
I'm going to go with Grindel, Kentucky, which is an AWA book. I've kind of been pimping AWA, but it's because everything they do is good up to this point. So I'm going to trust that this one's going to be good as well. This is by Jeff McCumsey and Tommy Lee Edwards. And the description is, for 2 generations, the rural, I can't say that word, hill town of Grindel, Kentucky, has honored its Faustian bargain with the monster living in its abandoned coal mine. A human sacrifice every season in return for prosperity, the likes of which the Rocky region had never before seen, including the greatest cash crop, the dankest weed in the land. When town elders break this pact, Grindel's only hope is that the prodigal daughter will return home to face down the creature. So it seems very much a take on Kentucky's version of crap. My mind just went blank.
That's going around today. You're not alone.
What is the epic poem?
Beowulf.
Beowulf, thank you. So it seems very much a AWA's take on Beowulf.
And marijuana.
Well, of course, it's Kentucky. What else are they growing there besides the dankest weed in the land?
What do they grow in Kentucky? I don't.
I just told you,
They
the
grow bluegrass.
dankest weed in the land. Have you not watched Justified?
Somewhere Snoop Dogg is poo-pooing that idea. He's like, nah, son.
Oh man, well, Snoop Dogg would, because he's a dumbass. Because read the history of Kentucky bluegrass marijuana, brother. It's amazing.
There's a reason. Yeah, there's a reason why it's its own music.
I don't know. I'm ignoring the fact that he just called Snoop Dogg a dumbass. Number one, because I don't want to get shot. But number two, I love Snoop Dogg. So anyway,
Oh, hell with that guy. He sucks.
oh, you suck. Your face.
Oh man, incorrect.
No, what I heard.
So what's your book, Caleb?
My book. Oh, so first, for everybody who is finger wagging me, as well you should, for not remembering the title of Giant Days. The title of the John Allison book I was talking about is Giant Days.
There you go.
That would be dopeness. No, so there's a book coming out. Do you guys ever read the magazine The Nib? NIB?
No.
So there's a magazine called The Nib. They are a lot of cartoonists. There's a lot of political cartoons in it. It's really fun. Of course, it's named after the pen that a lot of comic artists and a lot of just cartoonists in general draw with, a nib. There is a book it collects some of the political cartoons from the Nib, and the book is called Be Gay, Do Comics, which is a play off of the famous phrase "Be Gay, Do Crime." And this is it's a queer history and memoir and satire from the Nib, and it has a bunch of different stories. As you know, I'm looking over the little pitch to it. One of the stories is a dream of a queer separatist town. There's a story of the life of a gay Jewish Nazi fighter. There's a gender reveal party that rips open the fabric of the universe. There's lots of stuff. It's I absolutely love the Nib. They're incredibly clever. They're incredibly smart. Amazing political commentary on the comics that we are on the times that we live in. This has got a epic shit ton of creators attached to it. That if you read the Nib, then you'll recognize the name. There's Hazel Newvalent, Matt Lubinchowski's on there. Sasha Velour is doing work in there. Shinyan Kaur is on there. Bianca Zinus is on there. Casimir Lee, just a ton. Like there's a ton of people connected to this book, and it's going to be fun. I really enjoy anthologies. I really enjoy collections of comic strips. I think we've talked about that before. I love getting those comic strip collections, be it strips from what we would originally think of comics, or new age comic strips, or collections of strips that are being told as web comics. I just think it's really cool to get those all put together in one spot. So this is coming out of the Nib. It was originally a Kickstarter, but now you can just get it and own it and have it on your shelf looking at you, being all pretty. Called Be Gay, Do Comics.
Very cool. Very cool. Good show. I enjoyed the chaos topic, guys.
Well, of course you did. You came up with it. It was a stroke of genius.
Yeah, it was fun.
And it will
Thanks
be fun.
for contributing.
No, of course. And it will be fun when we all get together next week to do this all again. So we hope all of you come back to listen to us. It'll be good times. And if we don't have anything else, and that's me asking you guys if you have anything else.
I do not.
Nothing else. We covered it all.
Things. Well, in that case, go forth. And I like making Craig wait as we do this, because you can tell he's just really wanting to, and love comics.
Ooh.
That wasn't a woohoo as much as just an ooh. That was
it was a boo because you made me wait. There was no woo. It was boo.
The man booed me, Matt.
Well, he'll do that. He also tried to dodge his responsibility of the chaos episode this week, and I was like, nuh-uh. That's exactly what I said.
I'm fine having chaos episodes, but coming up with the idea is not my thing. But hey, it works.
But it is your thing. It was an awesome topic today. So
yeah, well, I'm glad it worked out.
Speaking of dodging things, Craig, did you notice that Matt didn't answer my question of whether or not he would hold hands with me while we watch Gravel? I noticed that.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't hear it either. I
straight up said, oh, this is an amazing idea. I'll go with you. We'll go see it opening night. Can we hold hands? And you just went on to a different subject.
Oh. Yeah, I would have done that anyway.
Would you hold my hand? Would you?
I would not.
That's homophobic.
That would diminish my enthusiasm for the experience. Hold hands during Gravel? the hell are you talking about?
but it's me and you. We have the special love.
There's you can't have those things diminish the experience. You can't watch just evil freaking action sequences and with your arm around a partner. That's like what? It's like when I saw Jane's
He took
Addiction.
that to a whole new level. You just wanted to hold hands, and now he's calling you his partner, Caleb.
I didn't say I was going to blow you, Matt. I'm a happily married man. I just wanted to hold hands while we watched a movie.
Yeah, I mean, baby steps.
All right, guys. Well, we're getting out of here. Love y'all.
All right. Love you guys, too. Talk
See
to you
you guys.
later. All right.